The waitress found a note on a napkin that made her blood run cold. Sarah Mitchell was serving her last table that November night when a stranger left something that wasn't a tip. The napkin had words that would save her life. What was written there exposed a danger she never saw coming. Sarah Mitchell thought it was just another shift at the diner, but that note on the napkin changed everything. The warning came from someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. It was a cold Tuesday night at Rosie's Diner on Route 42, just outside Columbus, Ohio. Sarah Mitchell had been working as a waitress there for 5 years. 26 years old, single mother of a 4-year-old daughter named Emma, Sarah knew every corner of that place. The red vinyl booths, the cracked linoleum floors, the smell of coffee that never quite left her uniform. She worked the evening shift, 6 to midnight, 5 days a week. The tips weren't great, but they paid the bills. That night started like any other. The dinner rush had cleared out by 8:30. Only a few truckers sat scattered across the diner, eating meatloaf and mashed potatoes, reading newspapers, minding their own business. Sarah was wiping down table 7 when the door chimed. A man walked in. He wore a dark grey coat and kept his head down, nothing unusual about him at first glance. Plenty of travelers stopped by Rosie's Diner on their way through Ohio. The man took a seat at the counter right at the end, away from everyone else. Sarah grabbed a menu and walked over. "Good evening. What can I get you tonight?" The man didn't look up right away. When he did, Sarah noticed his eyes. They were tired, worried, like he hadn't slept in days. "Just coffee," he said quietly. His voice was rough, strained. Sarah poured him a cup from the fresh pot. "Anything else?" "No, just the coffee. Thank you." Sarah went back to her work, refilling sugar dispensers, rolling silverware in napkins. The man sat there for maybe 20 minutes, barely touching his coffee. He kept glancing toward the door, then at his watch, then back at the door. Sarah had seen nervous customers before, but something about this guy felt different. He wasn't just anxious, he was scared. Around 10:15, the man signaled for the check. Sarah brought it over with a smile. He pulled out a $10 bill, far more than the $2 coffee cost. "Keep the change," he said. Then he did something strange. He pulled a napkin from the dispenser, took out a pen, and started writing. Sarah turned away to help another customer. When she came back, the man was gone. The $10 bill sat on the counter. Next to it was the napkin, folded in half. Sarah picked up the money first, then noticed the napkin had writing on it. She unfolded it. What she read made her heart stop. The note said, "Do not go home tonight. They are waiting for you. You are in danger. Trust no one. Go to the police now." Sarah's hands started shaking. She looked around the diner. The man was nowhere to be seen. She read the note again. This had to be some kind of joke, a sick prank. But something in her gut told her it wasn't. The handwriting was hurried, almost frantic. Whoever wrote this was serious. Sarah thought about her daughter Emma, staying with her mother that night, like she always did when Sarah worked late. Her mind raced. Who would be waiting for her? Why would anyone want to hurt her? She was just a waitress. She didn't have enemies. She didn't owe anyone money. She lived a quiet, simple life. Then she remembered something. 3 weeks ago, she had witnessed something. Late one night after her shift, she was walking to her car in the parking lot behind the diner. She heard voices, angry voices, 2 men arguing near a black van. She didn't think much of it at the time. She got in her car and drove home. But one of those men had looked right at her. She remembered his face, cold eyes, a scar across his left cheek. He had stared at her for a long moment before getting into the van and driving away. Sarah hadn't thought about it again until now. Could that be connected to this note? She folded the napkin and put it in her apron pocket. Her shift manager, Tom, was in the back office doing paperwork. Sarah knocked on the door. "Tom, I need to leave early. Family emergency." Tom looked up, annoyed. "Sarah, you can't just leave. We're short-staffed tonight. Please, Tom, it's important." He sighed. "Fine, but you owe me a shift this weekend." Sarah didn't argue. She grabbed her coat and purse from the break room and headed out the back door. The parking lot was dark, lit only by a single flickering streetlight. Her car was parked in the far corner, like always. She walked quickly, keys already in her hand. That's when she saw it. A black van parked 3 spaces away from her car. The same black van from 3 weeks ago. Sarah's blood turned to ice. The note was real. Someone was watching her. Someone knew where she worked. Someone knew her schedule. She turned around and ran back inside the diner. Tom was still in the office. "I need to use the phone, now." "What's going on, Sarah? Just let me use the phone, please." Tom stepped aside. Sarah dialed 911. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the receiver. "911, what's your emergency? I need help. Someone is following me. I'm at Rosie's Diner on Route 42. There's a van in the parking lot. I think someone is trying to hurt me." The operator's voice was calm. "Ma'am, are you in a safe location right now?" "Yes, I'm inside the diner." "Okay, stay inside. Do not go outside. Officers are on their way." Sarah hung up. Tom stared at her. "What the hell is going on?" "I don't know, but someone left me a note warning me not to go home. And now there's a van outside, the same van I saw 3 weeks ago." Tom's face went pale. "You think someone's after you?" "I don't know what to think, but I'm not taking any chances." They waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Sarah kept watching the parking lot through the window. The van was still there. No movement. No one getting in or out. Then red and blue lights appeared. 2 police cruisers pulled into the parking lot. Officers got out, flashlights in hand. They approached the black van carefully. Sarah watched, holding her breath. One officer knocked on the van window. No response. He tried the door. It was unlocked. He opened it and shined his flashlight inside. Then he called to his partner. Both officers drew their weapons. Sarah's heart pounded. What did they find? A few minutes later, one of the officers came into the diner. "Are you Sarah Mitchell?" "Yes, that's me. We need you to come with us." "What did you find?" The officer's expression was grim. "We found rope, duct tape, and a crowbar in the van, and a photo of you." Sarah felt the room spin. "A photo of me?" "Yes, ma'am. Someone was planning to abduct you tonight. Do you have any idea who would want to do this?" Sarah told the officer everything, the incident 3 weeks ago, the 2 men arguing, the man with the scar, the note on the napkin. The officer took notes. "We're going to need you to come to the station and give a full statement. We're also putting out an alert for the driver of that van. You're lucky you didn't go home tonight." Sarah thought about the stranger who left the note. Who was he? How did he know? Why did he help her? The officer escorted Sarah to the police station. She gave her statement, described the man with the scar, described the stranger who left the note. Detectives started investigating immediately. They ran the license plate on the van. It came back registered to a man named Vincent Hale, a known associate of a local crime ring. Hale had a record: assault, kidnapping, armed robbery. The man with the scar was identified as Marcus Reed, Hale's partner. Both men were wanted in connection with several violent crimes across the state. The police believed Sarah had witnessed something she wasn't supposed to see that night 3 weeks ago. The argument between Hale and Reed wasn't just a disagreement. They were planning a robbery. Sarah had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they decided she was a loose end. The detectives explained that Hale and Reed had been tracking her movements for weeks. They knew her schedule. They knew where she lived. They knew about her daughter. The plan was to grab Sarah after her shift, take her somewhere remote, and make sure she could never identify them. The rope and duct tape in the van confirmed it. This wasn't a scare tactic. This was an abduction ready to happen. The stranger who left the note was eventually identified. His name was Daniel Cross, a former police detective who had been tracking Hale and Reed for months. Cross had been undercover gathering evidence. He had followed them to the diner that night and overheard their plan to grab Sarah after her shift. He couldn't blow his cover, but he couldn't let her walk into a trap either. So he left the note. That napkin saved Sarah's life. Cross had been working with federal authorities to build a case against the crime ring that Hale and Reed belonged to. The ring was responsible for robberies, kidnappings, and worse, across multiple states. Cross had infiltrated the group 6 months earlier, posing as a criminal for hire. He'd gained their trust slowly, carefully. Every piece of information he gathered brought law enforcement closer to taking down the entire operation. That night at the diner, Cross had been meeting with an informant when Hale and Reed showed up unexpectedly. They didn't notice Cross sitting in a booth near the back. They talked openly about their plan. Sarah was the target. Midnight was the time. The parking lot was the place. Cross knew he had to act fast. He couldn't call the police without exposing himself. His cover was too valuable. Months of work would be destroyed, but he also couldn't let an innocent woman be taken. So he made a choice. He wrote the note on the napkin. It was a risk. If Hale and Reed found out, they'd know there was a mole. But Cross couldn't live with himself if he did nothing. After leaving the diner, Cross immediately contacted his handler at the FBI. He explained what had happened, the note, Sarah, the plan. Within hours, federal agents coordinated with local police. They set up surveillance on the van. They tracked Hale and Reed's movements. When Sarah called 911, the response was swift because authorities were already in position. The evidence found in the van was enough to arrest both men on the spot. But it was just the beginning. Over the next 3 months, Cross continued his undercover work. He helped bring down 14 members of the crime ring. The operation resulted in multiple arrests, seized weapons, recovered stolen goods, and most importantly, lives saved. Sarah's case became a key piece of evidence in the trial. Her testimony about the night 3 weeks ago when she saw Hale and Reed in the parking lot helped establish their presence in Ohio. Combined with the physical evidence from the van and Cross's undercover recordings, the case against them was solid. Hale and Reed were arrested 2 days later trying to flee the state. They were charged with attempted kidnapping, conspiracy, and a list of other crimes. Both men are still in prison today. Sarah never went back to Rosie's diner. She moved to a different city, started a new job, built a new life for herself and Emma. She never forgot that night. And she never forgot the stranger who saved her. Years later, after the trial ended and Cross's undercover work was complete, Sarah got a letter. It was from Daniel Cross. In it, he explained everything, why he was there that night, why he wrote the note, why he couldn't do more. He apologized for the fear she must have felt. He told her she was brave. He told her that her testimony helped put dangerous people behind bars. Sarah wrote back. She thanked him. She told him he was a hero. They exchanged a few more letters over the years. Eventually, they met in person. Cross had retired from law enforcement and was living quietly in a small town in Montana. Sarah visited him once with Emma, who was now a teenager. They talked for hours. Cross showed them photos from his time undercover. He shared stories he'd never told anyone. Sarah shared how that night changed her, how it made her more aware, more cautious, but also more grateful. The note on the napkin became a symbol for Sarah. She kept it in a frame in her home, a reminder that danger can come from anywhere, but so can help, so can kindness, so can bravery. Emma asked about it once. "Mum, why do you keep that old napkin?" Sarah smiled. "Because it saved my life, sweetheart, and it taught me that even when things seem hopeless, there are people out there willing to risk everything to help a stranger." The waitress found a note on a napkin that changed her entire world. Sarah's new life was different in every way. She moved to Cleveland and got a job at a small bookstore. The pay was less than what she made at the diner, but the environment felt safer. She could see everyone who came in. The doors locked at closing time. There were security cameras. Emma thrived in her new school. She made friends quickly. She joined the soccer team. She started taking piano lessons. Sarah watched her daughter grow up happy and carefree, never knowing how close they came to losing everything that night. Sarah made a promise to herself. She would never take her safety for granted again. She took self-defense classes. She installed an alarm system in her apartment. She varied her routes home. She stayed aware of her surroundings. These weren't paranoid habits. They were smart choices, the kind of choices that keep people safe. The trial of Vincent Hale and Marcus Reed lasted 3 weeks. Sarah testified on day 7. She walked into that courtroom with her head held high. She looked Hale directly in the eyes as she described what she saw that night 3 weeks before the incident: the black van, the argument, the cold stare. Hale showed no emotion. Reed smirked, but the jury saw through them. The evidence was overwhelming: the rope, the duct tape, the crowbar, Sarah's photo, Cross's testimony, the recordings, the pattern of crimes across multiple states. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Hale received 30 years. Reed got 25. Neither would see freedom for decades. Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders when the verdict was read. Justice had been served. Daniel Cross retired from the FBI 2 years after the trial. He'd spent 15 years in law enforcement, 5 of those years working undercover. The toll it took on him was immense: the lying, the constant danger, the isolation. He moved to Montana to find peace. He bought a small cabin near Glacier National Park. He spent his days hiking, fishing, reading. He tried to leave the past behind. But some things stay with you. The faces of the people you save, the faces of the people you couldn't. Cross thought about Sarah often. He wondered if she was okay, if she had moved on, if she was safe. When he received her first letter, he cried. It was the first time in years. Her words meant everything to him. She told him he was a hero. But Cross didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who did what anyone should do: help someone in danger. Their friendship grew through those letters. Sarah shared stories about Emma, her new job, her life in Cleveland. Cross shared stories about Montana, the mountains, the wildlife, the quiet. They both found healing in those words, a connection born from a single act of courage. When they finally met in person, it felt like reuniting with an old friend. Emma was 15 by then. She shook Cross's hand and said, "Thank you for saving my mom." Cross looked at Sarah, then back at Emma. "Your mom saved herself. I just gave her a heads up." But Sarah knew better. Without that note on the napkin, she would have walked into that parking lot. She would have been taken. The outcome would have been unthinkable. The crime ring that Hale and Reed belonged to was dismantled completely. 14 arrests, millions of dollars in stolen goods recovered, weapons seized, victims given justice. Cross's undercover work was the key to it all. The FBI awarded him a commendation. The director personally thanked him. But the recognition Cross valued most was Sarah's letter, because it reminded him why he did the work. Not for medals or praise, but to protect people, to stop evil, to make a difference. One person at a time, one note on a napkin at a time. Sarah eventually told Emma the full story when she turned 18. They sat at the kitchen table, the framed napkin between them. Sarah explained everything: the stranger, the note, the van, the trial. Emma listened quietly, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I had no idea. I know. I didn't want you growing up afraid. But now you're an adult. You deserve to know the truth." Emma hugged her mother tightly. "You're the strongest person I know." Sarah smiled. "I'm just a woman who got lucky. Lucky that a stranger cared enough to write a note. The waitress found a note that saved her, and in doing so, that note saved Emma too." Years passed. Sarah eventually remarried. A kind man named Robert, who worked as a teacher. He treated Emma like his own daughter. They built a happy life together. Sarah never forgot what happened, but she didn't let it define her. She lived fully. She laughed often. She loved deeply. She raised Emma to be strong, aware, and compassionate. Emma went to college and studied criminal justice. She wanted to help people the way Daniel Cross helped her mother. She became a victim advocate, working with survivors of violent crimes. She gave them support, resources, and hope. Sarah was incredibly proud. Daniel Cross lived out his remaining years in Montana. He passed away peacefully at age 72. Sarah and Emma attended his funeral. They met his sister, his nieces, his nephew. They shared stories about the man who changed their lives. At the service, Sarah placed the framed napkin on Cross's casket. It was time to let it go, to let him rest, knowing his bravery would never be forgotten. Emma gave a eulogy. She spoke about heroes, about sacrifice, about the ripple effect of one good deed. She told everyone in that church that her mother was alive because a stranger chose courage over convenience. And because of that choice, she existed. Her future children would exist. The people she helped as a victim advocate were helped because Daniel Cross wrote a note on a napkin. The waitress found a note that changed everything. That note became a legacy, a reminder that we all have the power to save someone, to speak up, to act, to care. Sarah Mitchell's story is proof that evil exists, but goodness is stronger. That danger is real, but so is protection. That strangers can become saviors, and that sometimes all it takes is a few words on a napkin to change the course of a life. If you were Sarah, would you have trusted the note on the napkin? Let me know in the comments. And if this story gave you chills, hit that subscribe button right now, because I bring you true stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat every single week. Don't miss the next one. The note on the napkin wasn't just a warning. It was proof that sometimes danger is closer than we think. Sarah Mitchell's life was never the same after that November night in 1995. The waitress found a note that exposed a terrifying plot. The napkin held words that changed everything. That life-changing warning came from a stranger who risked everything to save her. This is a reminder that paying attention to the signs around us can mean the difference between life and death. Sarah's story shows us that evil exists, but so does unexpected kindness. The man who left that note didn't have to help. He could have walked away, but he didn't. And because of his bravery, Sarah and her daughter are alive today. The next time you see something that doesn't feel right, trust your instincts. That feeling might save your life. The waitress found a note on a napkin, and it became the warning that saved her from a nightmare.